Hello guys, welcome to episode 10 of making an online Pokemon game. If you remember last time, we simply added in some debugging so I can, or a console I should say, print, so I can say print hello, and it doesn't print because I need to do print comma hello. So you separate it by commas, which is fine. I think I decided maybe we should write our own print statement. I know I was talking about last time like how it stuck that I used to have to write them by hand, but this way we can have it be something more like this where I can say print hello world. If I need more parentheses, I can add that because right now it just is weird. I don't like the commas. So yeah, unfortunately we're gonna write our own splitter function. Under utility, this shouldn't be too hard. I'm gonna write it here, so Alt-C, and we can't call it split string anymore. Split string, so we'll call it split string something else. Split string, I don't know, command. And this way it'll exclude, and we'll call it split command. So does this work? Can I just do this? I'm editing it up here. Split command. Oh, I was hoping it would edit the whole thing, but it didn't. Alright, so split command, that's what we'll call it, I guess. And here I will say the message. We'll call it text, txt. And one thing I got a suggestion about was I should add in some Java docs. I don't really know how to though. I think you can do something like arg text or something. Like, I don't know fully. It would be a good idea, especially for these utility functions, because these utility functions in general should never rely on anything outside of itself. So this should never rely on like the console or the client or the network. Same with the debugger. The debugger should never rely on things that are in the network or the server or the player. It will a little bit for these console commands, but other than that, it shouldn't. Anyway, so let's get this splitting working. So I don't need to provide anything else because I'm guaranteeing we're going to split on space and exclude quotes. I won't really need anything else, so we'll just do it this way. So var parts equals, and I'm just going to create an array. I could do an array list. Not an array list. What is it called in this? It's called that's a Java thing. DS list create. This will be a little more efficient. Do I really care about efficiency though? Not really. It's not worth caring about right now. So we'll just do var parts equals an array, and then I will say for var I equals 1, I is less than or equal to string length of txt I plus plus. And I believe for string length you do have to start at 1, not 0. That's why I'm doing equals 1 and less than or equal to the length. So let's get the character. So var c equals char at, or string char at. And this takes in the string and the index, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, string and index. So txt at index I. And if you hover over this, if you read that, it says starting at 1 for the first character. Alright, so at the very top we'll say var in string equals false, and this way I can say, we'll also need a var current equals blank. So we're going to essentially be adding this character to the end of current, and then once we reach a delimiter or a space, we're going to move it into parts. And this in string will determine if we are inside of quotations or not. So if we have the string print space hello world, in string will be true if we're inside these quotations. And that way we won't split on a space. So, and we also don't want to include the quotations themselves. So if C equals a quotation, I think I can do it like this. Or I could probably do it like this. Nope. GameMaker does not accept single quotes. So I have to do it like this. The backslash is so that it doesn't like do something weird like this. so I know I'm talking about the literal quotation instead of trying to modify this internal string. So if it's that, then I'm going to say is string equals not is, or in string is the name. Let me fix that. In string. Else if C equals a space, then I'm going to say parts, and we're going to say parts, or array length parts equals current, and then we'll say current equals blank. So this is saying if we reach a space, then we need to add this, add the current string into the parts. We also need to say if it's space and we're not in the string. Because again, if we're in the string in a set of quotations, we don't want to split on this delimiter. And then we'll do else, and we'll just say current plus equals the current character. And then at the very end, after the for loop, I need to copy this line of code and paste it at the very end. So if we reach the end of the string, we also want to add the current to the end of the array. And then we can just return parts. I think that'll work. I think. So I'm going to copy this command quickly, and then I'm going to scroll up to the console. And here I'm doing string split. I can replace this with split command. I don't need to include anything, just the text. And let's see if this works, or if we'll get some errors. If I run this and I say hello, or print space quotations hello world, how are you, I press enter, there we go, it's printing out. It is separated out perfectly. So now we can use spaces again and still contain our multiple words. So that being said, now I want to make it so that we don't move right now. I'm getting a little frustrated at typing in and having our player move a lot, so I will go into the player data, and under, where are we? Scroll up to the update client, and I'm doing all of this, but I'm going to say at the very end, if console.active return. So I'm not going to do anything with this, any setting of these positions, if the console is active. So now if I run this and I execute this, if I press F1, print hello, and if I press the WASD keys, it doesn't make me move. Unless I press F1 and close it, now I can move again. There might be a little bug where if I hold the right key and then I press F1 and I release, I keep moving. That's because I never sent the key command to release the key to the server. But that's fine. For now, I'm just doing this for testing anyways. So we are 8 minutes and a half in. So what we need to do next is write up that command that I promised you guys, which is a command. If I open up the console commands, we are going to write one called send. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to send data to the client itself, or to the server itself. So this shouldn't be too terribly difficult. How it's going to work is I'm going to do send. So let's say this is the command. So you type in send. The first thing you need to send is the type. So we'll define if we want to send a U8, U16. So we'll have to parse those out, and then we'll need a the actual the data to send. So like we can say send a U16 and do like the number 16, let's say. So let's get that dealt with. First of all, we need to test the commands. So test argument count, and we need at least 2 arguments. We can't do it without more than 2 arguments. Actually, it should be 3. At least 3. So we can have more arguments, which we will. But for now, we'll need at least 3. Okay. with that being said, we need to parse out the second argument, which is U8, U16, whatever. So we'll write down to a function. Function string to buffer type arg. We'll just say str, and we'll do a switch statement here on the string, and we'll do a case. If we do a U8, we'll say return buffer U8. And I don't know if GameMaker still requires a break if you have a return, and it appears not, so that is good to know. I'm going to copy and paste this a few times. So we need a U16, a U32, and a U64. 32, 16, copy all of this, paste it in. We got a sign there. And then we'll do a couple more. We need one for a string, a buffer string. And I think that's it. We could do floats, but I'm not going to for now. I'm just going to leave it at strings. And now I'm going to do a loop over all the arguments. Or in particular, first I need to check that we have an odd number of arguments. So if array length args, and how do you check if it's odd? You do mod 2 equals 1. And we should say not equals 1. So if it's not 1, that means it's an even number of arguments, which means it's bad. We only want an odd number of arguments because every piece of data that we send needs both the type and the data. So it's 2 for each one. And the reason we want an odd number is because there's an extra argument at the start called send. So we'll need an odd number in general. So here I'm going to say debug.error, and I will say argument count for send was not odd, and we'll say got plus, and I'll do this on a new line, plus array length args. And so that'll just be an error saying, hey, you didn't have the right number of arguments. All right, and then at the end I can do a loop. So for var I equals 0, and actually we're going to start out at 1. I is less than array length args, and I'm going to do I plus equals 2. So we want to increase by 2. So we're going to skip over every other argument. All right, that should be good to go then. Let's get the first argument, which is going to be var type equals, and we need to call this function right here, string to buffer type, and I'm going to say args I, and then the var data equals, and why is this giving me an error? Something else has an error too. Up here, args. Is it not called args? It is, so what's with all these errors? A lot of errors, actually. What is going on here? Oh, probably this. Yeah. Okay, no, I was just being silly. Okay, data equals args I plus 1. So now we have the type and we have the data, but we might need to convert the data to a string or to a number. So I will say something along the lines of if type doesn't equal buffer string, then we will convert it to a actual number, if that makes sense. So we'll say data equals, and I will do real, I believe, real data. So if it's not a string, we convert it to a number. And then all I have to do is send this data. So how are we going to send the data? First of all, we also need to provide a type, actually, now that I think about it. So the type of data. How are we going to do this? I'm just trying to think. I'm sorry. We're going to start this off at 4, not 1. 3, not 1. Because the first two arguments is the type. And everything after that is the data. Which is the reason why we needed at least 3 arguments. So I'm going to copy this. No, we're going to just copy this and paste it up here. And instead of args I, this is going to be args 1 and args 2. And data, instead of just having it like this, I'm going to convert it to a real, because we know for a fact that this has to be real. It can't be a string. These are no longer declaring the variables, but just reassigning them. And then up here, I can say network.write or network.start, and the message we want to start is data. And now that I think about it, we don't need this type, do we? Okay, we need to fix a few things. We don't need this type, which means we do need that to be declaring the variable. This can actually be 2. This now needs to be even. Yep, I know. I said odd before and I explained it, but that needs to be even. And this needs to start at 2. That should be good. Okay, so the reason is the first argument in the entire list is the word send. The second argument is what type of data we are sending. And then everything after that is the actual data itself. So we got this network start data. And at the very end of this for loop, I can say network.write data or type and data. And then at the very end of the for loop, we'll send it to the server. Send server, and that's it. That's everything. Okay, I think we're good to go now. So now I can test something out. If I press execute here, we can try sending a command to the server from the client. So what should we send? Let's send a move command. How do we send a move command now? Go to the network types, and I'm going to say send. If I just do send, we got the wrong number of arguments. We want to send a key press, which is 4. And what does the key press expect? It expects a U16, I believe. I think. I can check this. So on data server, you expect a U8 for the key that's being pressed. And that key can be 65, which I believe is the A key. So we're going to say we're pressing the left key. So send to the server a key press. And the key press data is a U8 65. Press enter. It broke. Unable to convert to a number. args2. Okay, that makes sense. Let me go back into my run console command. If I scroll up right here, we're converting the real args2, which is wrong. We need to first convert it. Actually, no, that should have been fine because this is data, not that. Let me try this again. Let me see something. Oh, cancel that actually. We can just run the client by itself. F1. So we said send for U8 65. So what are we doing here? We have the send, which is argument 0. Argument 1 should be argument 1. That's the issue. Okay, that should have been argument 1. All right, we're good to go now. Do I still have this running? I don't think so. So let's run this server, run the client again. And now if I try this again, send for, we're sending a key press command. And we're going to say it's going to be a U8. And we're going to send which key? The 65 key, which is A. Press enter. And all of a sudden, I start moving left because I sent that to the server. I don't know any of the other keys, to be honest, but I could do this for anything. So why do we, I guess, care about this? I don't want this in the final production of the game, by the way. This is for us to test, because anything the client can send to the server, you have to realize that a bad actor, somebody who wants to break your game, can also send to the server. So the client, once you release your server to the world, anyone can send data to that server. So it's up to the server to say, no, this is bad. So let's say this character right here, he's a bad person. He does not like you, so he's going to try and crash your server. You should not be able to send any command from the client to the server that will break the server. It's okay if it breaks this client, but it should not break the server, and it should not break any other clients. And that is how you secure your server. But right now, our system is very, we'll say, it's not the best. So right now, if I were to just send 4, this will likely crash the server. Press enter, and if I abort this, yep, the server crashed. So like, these are things we'll need to fix in the future, and we'll need to test this out. And right now I can't move anymore because the server crashed, but those are things to think about. If I had done the client movement, I would have been able to send, and I would have been able to actually send a position from the client to the server and say, hey, my position is updated. I'm actually moving way over to the right. Like, my position is way over here. So no matter what kind of game you're making, you should have some form of a way to send just any form of data to the server, just so you can test it out. It doesn't matter if it goes the other way, because you should have control of the server, full control of the server. The client only has control of itself and what it sends to the server. So it's okay if the bad person who is trying to hack you, if their client breaks, if they are sending you information and they break themselves, that's okay. Whoa, I have hiccups. That's okay. But if it's able to send data and crash the server or the client, then you got an issue. So yeah, again, I can do this, send for a U8 64. I think it was a U8, right? 65. Yep. And that works. Let me bring me back. And I could also send for, I'm going to try and do this quickly. So 4 is a press, but if I do a 5, that should be a release. So I can press enter here and send 5 U8, U8 64, 65. I don't know if that worked. Didn't do it in time. Anyway, I don't know, it's kind of fun to play with, in my opinion. But yeah, that should be everything. We can now, that's the biggest command that we'll need, really, is the send command, because then we can test a whole bunch of stuff out. But we'll also be playing with some other stuff. For instance, right now under the player data, let's do a little test, actually, just for your guys' sake. I'm going to make speed equal to 5 up in the player data, and down here when I do update position, we don't need that anymore. So now we are setting it way up here. And the reason for that is I can go to my console commands and we can do a little test in the client. We'll create a new command here, and I'll call it set speed break. And we'll do another, this will just be a simple command. And I'm going to set the speed. It takes 2 arguments. One is the variable set speed, and the other one is the speed itself. And then I just say data, or var s equals arg real args1, and then I can say player data, and we need to set it to the specific player. So I need to say player controller dot players this is in square brackets, client.id now equals s. So this will allow us to set the speed of an individual player. And it shouldn't actually set the speed. Because of the way we set this up, there should be no way for the client to modify their speed because it's set by the server. So this is a little test to see if our server is secure against movement hacks. So this character is red. He's going to be the bad person who's going to try and set his speed to something really high. So set speed 10. If I run that, of course it breaks. Unable to find instance for object 10. So I was unable to find the correct player. Players client.id equals s. So where is happening at? Where did that error go? Don't you just love bugs like this? What are all these? Oh, it's because this is not the client. Let me read that again. We can do this really quick. Set speed 10. And it's trying to index 10, which means that... Oh, yeah, okay. I'm just silly. We need to set the speed to S, not set the client to S. Or set the player to X, I should say. So let's run this one more time. And we'll do this again. 2 players. Again, the red guy will be the bad guy. He's trying to set his speed. So we'll say set speed 10. And now, if I try to move, you'll notice that the player on the right, it looks like he's moving really fast, but he's only moving fast between each cell. If you're looking at any other player, even though he's changed his speed, the actual player itself on anyone else actually looks just fine. Like, it looks like he's moving like normal. And their positions are actually, for the most part, being relatively the same. So for now, I think movement hacks should be fine. Even if your speed changes on your player, then it shouldn't change anywhere else. It shouldn't change the server, because you can't modify what the server thinks the speed is. The server has your speed set to 5, and you have no way of changing that as a client. Anyway, that last little bit was more explanation. Hopefully you see the power in this whole console. Even though it wasn't required for the game itself, it's still something that we want to have for testing purposes. And you probably should add that to any big version game you make. If you're making a big game, add a console just so you can test things. It'll make your life so much nicer. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. So until next time, I'll see you later.